So we're here on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Beis, and we got up to the two dots, which is, if you look from the bottom up, let's say there are wide lines, and then if you count the more narrow lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. The first word of the line is who. We're up to Barishona. We said the following, that back in biblical times, when there was Yibum, the Kavanah was L'Shem Mitzvah. But in some later generation, there was a falling, so to speak, and the Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah was not extant. So Barishona, this was the mission in Bechoros, right? Barishona Shayu Miskavnim L'Shem Mitzvah, Mitzvah's Yibum Kodemes L'Mitzvah. Achshav Shein Miskavnim L'Shem Mitzvah, Amru Mitzvah's Chalitza Kodemes L'Mitzvah's Yibum. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Chazru Lomar Shemitzvah's Yibum Kodemes L'Mitzvah's Chalitza. We got back on the track, and people are having the right kavanah, l'shem mitzvah, and therefore, in this generation, we're going to go back to the biblical situation, and we're going to encourage what? Yibum. That's going to be our first choice. Let's see if he adds anything here. We're on Lamed Tes Amud Beis, correct? You have anything there to add? Let's see if he adds anything here. Oh, it says the following: Mitzvahs Yibum ha'im tzarich kavanah l'shem kinyan or l'shem mitzvah. Nafkamina b'yavam sheyada sheyesh musag shel Yibum ach lo yada shezos mitzvah. So he had kavanah to be kona her as his wife, but not to fulfill the mitzvah. He was unaware of the mitzvah. V'lo kiven l'shem mitzvah ach kiven l'shem Yibum. Right, it means for kinyan Yibum. That's an interesting question that he raises here, which I guess we'll have to analyze. He has another discussion here about someone who doesn't have any kavanah at all. He doesn't have kavanah l'shem mitzvah, but he doesn't have any ulterior motives, like in the neutral zone. See if he has anything here. So far, not finding it. All right, so let's go on. Omer Rav Nachman, Omer Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. So wait, so who's talking to who? We had a statement of Rami Bar Chama. And now it seems like Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak is responding to the statement of Rami Bar Chama. Ichshure Dare, are you telling me that our generation is greater than the previous generations? Because in our generation, the people have kavanah l'shem mitzvah, and therefore mitzvah's yibum kodemes. So now the ball is in Rami Bar Chama's court. What does he mean that chazru lomar mitzvah's yibum kodemes? Gemara says that it's not because of Shuri Dara, but Mikara, in the original period of time when they said that people are not having kavanah l'shem mitzvah, and therefore mitzvah chalitza kodemes, savri leikabas shol. L'basof sabri le'kirabbanan. So we're going to have to study Abba Shaul, but what we have to keep in mind is that whether or not we paskin like Abba Shaul was a matter of decision over the course of time. So one generation accepted Abba Shaul, and Abba Shaul is going to be absolutely opposed to Yibum if there's no element of the Shem Mitzvah. And ultimately, we're going to accept the Shita Rabbanan who rejected Abba Shaul and are going to allow for Yibum even if a person is not Miskaven L'Shem Mitzvah. So again, according to Abba Shaul, we're not going to allow Yibum, and the matir that the Torah allowed for the Erev of Eishes Ach is conditional on Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah. The Rabbanan say no, that the Torah allows for Yibum even in the absence of Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah. The Sanya, Abba Shaul Omer, HaKoneh says even to L'Shem Noi. I have a feeling, is basically a way of saying that, he wants to marry this woman. That's all. There's nothing to do with the mitzvah of Yibum. But the mitzvah of Yibum gave him an opportunity to marry his brother's wife after the death of his brother. L'shem Ishus. Now, what's L'shem Ishus? He's not married. This is not a case of marrying a second wife. This is a case where the younger brother, we'll call him Shimon, is not married, and he wants to get married. He wants to have a wife. Has nothing to do with the mitzvah of Yibum. Now, what's the advantage of having a wife? So there are many advantages. Okay. He has a whole long list of advantages. So again, he's miskaven l'shem nisuin, but not l'shem mitzvah. So Abba Shaul says, "Ki'ilu pogea b'erev." I skipped the l'shum davar acher, which might mean that she's a wealthy woman. And in all these cases that he doesn't have kavanah l'shem mitzvah, Abba Shaul claims he's pogea b'erev. It says ki'ilu pogea b'erev. It's like he's having a relationship with Eishes Ach, which is an error. Again, you can't take this literally that he's an Eishes Ach, because the Torah was matir Yibum and removed the Isser of Eishes Ach. But the Torah only did so for the sake of a mitzvah. He's not interested in the mitzvah. So we have a very ambiguous language here. Ki ilu pogea v'erev. They have a phrase that is she pregnant or she's not pregnant. What do you mean? Ki ilu pogea v'erev. Either it is an erev or it's not an erev. He quotes here in the footnote, Rabbi Chanan Vasid, Shala Abba Shaul, Yibum Havi Mitami Essay Dochalosasem. The Kiyum essay overrides the Lots of H's Blachain Kidei Lidchos. If you want to be Docha the Yisr Erev of H's Sorach Kiyum Mitzvah. Without the Kiyum Mitzvah, there's no essay Dochalosas. V'im eino oseh l'mitzvah el l'mali tavis atzvo. That's not considered an essay shedochalos. The gam l'man diyorum mitzvahs eino trichas kavana. Oh, let's ask according to that man. You asked this question we made yesterday. If you hold mitzvahs eino trichas kavana, then he can achieve his essay and be docha the losa, say even if he doesn't have kavanah. He says, "Gam leman diyomer mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavanah modeh shebenchia tzarich kavanah." Unbelievable. There are two halachas in defining a mitzvah. One is to achieve a kiyum mitzvah, and the other is to be docha losas. As far as the condition of what? Of being a kind of mitzvah, you could say mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavanah, and even in the absence of kavanah l'shem mitzvah, he achieves kavanah. He achieves the mitzvah. But that's not enough. We need a higher level of mitzvah in order to be docha lotas. So mitzvahs Edom Tzrichas Kavana doesn't mean that a mitzvah without Kavana is identical and it's on the same level as a mitzvah with Kavana. We still drop one level. And then Nafkamina is going to be when that mitzvah is powerful enough to trump a losas.
But I think you said it falls off right away.
No, we're holding now that the reason why Eshesach falls away is because of the principle of essay dochalosas.
Okay.
That the overlap of an essay, says Yibum, with the losas of Eshesach means that the essay trumps the losas. But then now we have to figure out, did he fulfill the essay? So one way of saying is that according to Abishol, Mrs. Tzrichas Kavana, and he's interested in Yofi, he's interested in Ishus, he's interested in Mammon, he's not interested in the mitzvah at all. And if mitzvah tzrichas kavana, then he drops the mitzvah. If he drops the mitzvah, it's nothing to override the losses. But what I don't understand is then why does it say ki'ilu pogeh be'erev? If there's no essay, then it should be pogeh be'erev. What's the ki'ilu? But in any event, he says that if you hold even if you hold mitzvahs and tzrichas kavana, that's not enough of a mitzvah to be dochalotzas. It's like a brisket tzvei. There's one din of a mitzvah, then there's another din of a real mitzvah. As a mitzvah, then it can be dochalos. It's like you have a measuring rod. You have mitzvah that reaches from 0 to 51, and then you have a mitzvah that reaches all the way to 100. And mitzvah Einam Tzrichas Kavana means, all right, you made it to 51. We'll give you credit for the mitzvah. But in order to be dochalos, so we need to reach number 100. And that you can't do because you didn't have kavanah l'shem mitzvah. That's Rabbi Elchanan Bassi. Mamish, a new revolutionary idea. I say, is he Mekayim the mitzvah? Is he not Mekayim mitzvah? He's Mekayim the mitzvah, then Esi Dochalosa. No, he's Mekayim mitzvah because mitzvah ain't a shrikas kavanah, but that's not a mitzvah. Zah, shein a mitzvah that can be Dochalosas.
Mahal said that passing by that a mitzvah looks like Kavana. Isn't that it's supposed to be, of course, of the Maisa mitzvah is the kima mitzvah.
Excellent. So if the Maisa mitzvah is the kima mitzvah, even without Kavana, why can't it be Dochalosa? You understand, Rabbi Elchanan wants to reconcile Abba Shol with every shita, with both shitas. Lomi boy, if I'll mitzvah tzrichas kavana, so Rabbi Shol is simple. You can't be dochalos of Eshesach without kavana, because without kavana you forfeit the mitzvah. No, says Rabbi Elchanan, even if I hold mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana, Abba Shol still makes sense. Why? Because you can't be dochalos with the mitzvah minus kavana, even though mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. Because there's another dimension of a full-fledged mitzvah that reaches the top. What is it in the in the carnivals? You have that thing where you have to hit the thing and then it goes up, and if it rings the bell, then you get a prize for that. You get a big teddy bear, right? Do they have that in Australia too? Smashu Kazay. You haven't visited any carnivals, but I don't know what it's called. You take the hammer, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to hit it hard enough that it shoots the ball all the way up to the top. So if you have a mitzvah without kavana, according to the Mandiyam, mitzvah Einam Tzrichas Kavana, you're not going to hit all the way to the top, but you'll hit high enough that we give you credit for the mitzvah. But what kind of mitzvah is capable of overriding lo saseh under the law of Esek of lo saseh? Only when it hits all the way to the top. And without kavana, it won't hit all the way to the top.
It's because of Abba Shol that we do complete something.
Correct. So Abba Shol represents the accepted halacha originally, which is codified by the Mishnah, that mitzvahs chalitza kodemis. We want to avoid even a smell of the erev of Eshesach because mitzvahs tzrichas come. Because Abba Shol holds that the mitzvah of Yibum, when it's fulfilled, will override the lav and the erfa of Eshesach. But since people are not having kavanah, they've got three different options: l'shem noi, l'shem ishus, l'shem davar acher. Therefore, he's lacking kavanah l'shem mitzvah. Therefore, he's not mekayim mitzvah, and therefore, there's nothing to override the losses. It's a whole chagad.
There's no other example in the halakha, in other mitzvot that we make that we can find other principle. Where is there?
Well, let's say, for example, we had a case of kilayim b'tzitzis. Let's see if it could work out. So you have a mixture of chutei tzemer. You have a mixture of chutei tzemer with a beged shel tishma. So you're wearing a linen garment and you're attaching tzitzis. So we're going to say esei dochalosis, so that even though it's kilayim, but nevertheless, the mitzvah of Gedilim Tassel of tzitzis overrides the losas of Kilayim. And not la halach l'maisa, but saying before all exeris, so, but that was the pure abstract halach. So what happens? The man puts on this beged that has Kilayim and it's tzitzis, and he doesn't have kavanah l'shem mitzvah. So according to what I understand from Rabbi Chanan, in such a case, he's not allowed to wear it. Why? Because since even if mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, he has a lower level mitzvah, that lower level mitzvah does not have the power to override the losas of kalan. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'm saying.
Where's he not from? How does he know that this is what it comes to do?
Well, I guess what's compelling Rebbe Chanan, I don't know if there are any explicit rise for that, is how do I reconcile Abba Shol with our accepted halacha? We pass that mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. I mean, there were exceptions to that, but the general rule is mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. Gemara says tokei l'shir yotz, or if a person enjoys the matzah, or somebody's beating him over the head to eat the matzah on Leil Pesach, he's yotz in the mitzvah of matzah. So the ma'aseh mitzvah generates a kiyum mitzvah even without kavanah. So what are we going to do with Abba Shol? Abba Shol is worrying about the shem noy, the shem this, the shem that. The mitzvah ain't tzrichas kavanah. And Rabbi Chanan is convinced that Abba Shol is maintaining that the Iser Erev of Eishes Ach requires a dechiyah, which can only achieve that dechiyah on condition that he fulfills the mitzvah. And he's not fulfilling the mitzvah. Why? Because he has in mind the shem noy. What kind of business is that? Mitzvah ain't tzrichas kavanah. So Rabbi Chanan creates a new level in Hilchos Dechiyah, that it's not enough to have a kiyum mitzvah. You need azam mitzvah, which is on a higher level than a kiyum mitzvah, in order to be dochalosis.
When Abba Shol said that
so that's what I'm saying. I don't have the Rabbi Chanan in front of me. Everything I've been saying in the last 10 minutes comes from one line in a footnote. One line.
Abba Shol's not saying it.
Abba Shol is saying that you're being pogea with an error. Again, I don't know what the ki'ilu is, but you're being pogea with the error of Eishasach. So Rabbi Chanan says, let's fill in the missing blanks here. Why are you being pogea with Eishasach? The Torah allowed you to do evil. Name. It's not the Torah allowed you to do evil. We're dealing with Esei Dochalosis. That's Rabbi Chanan's revolution here. That Abba Shol is predicated on Esei Dochalosis. It's not like the Torah is saying, well, forget about Eishasach. No. She is your Eishasach. How is the Torah stepping aside and allowing for this? And the answer is because of the mitzvah of evil. Because the application of Esei Dochalosis says Abba Shol, you don't have kavanah, then you don't have an essay. And if you don't have an essay, you can't be dochalosis. So Rabbi Chanan asked the question, but what are you going to do with the Madi Yomi who says it's ancient? So you and I would have said, let's commit Abba Shol, like tighten the screws, that he holds essay requires kavanah, that any mitzvah is kavanah. So Rabbi Chanan opens up a whole new vista. Man, I can reconcile Abba Shol even if I hold mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavanah. But in Hilchos Dechiyah, you need azav mitzvah that has kavanah, and it's a complete mitzvah. So that even if I hold mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavanah, don't think that you have a complete mitzvah. You pass the test. When you go to college, you can get a 65 and pass. I don't know, I think maybe I'm dating myself, but in my day it was 65, and today maybe Maybe they changed, but right. So you have a 65. So you'll get a C minus in the course, but you pass the course, and you can get a bachelor's degree or whatever degree with a C plus. But there's something called an A. And that's a more impressive record.
No, I have a question on this the principle concept of evil. That what is it that by Kiddushin, one of the
Each Makadish because
we and so we no longer give villages, and so there's a formula for Kiddushin. So why not even that they adopted a structure like Kiddushin, and so therefore it may enable Kavanah, and it wouldn't have this problem that can possibly arise because.
Well, wait a second. The Mishnah Kiddushin is talking about a case where you marry a woman who's not an Arab. Yevamot is addressing a case where she's an Arab. So if you don't introduce that extra element of essay dochalosis, as far as he's being kind of mitzvah yibum, then you're stuck with an Arab. I meet a woman on the street, she's not an Arab, I want to be Makadish. So I don't need l'shem mitzvah. It would be nice if I had l'shem mitzvah, because then I make the bracha, it's also fun. But that's only an enhancement. But that's part of the structure of being of Kenyan issues. I don't need to add the mitzvah element. Mitzvah l'chud and ishus l'chud. But in the case of Yibo, I can't afford, says Avishol, to put the mitzvah l'chud on the side and just focus on ishus, because I'm dealing with an Arab. How can the Torah allow me to have be with an Arab, an ishus? Unless I have a mitzvah of esidokal and esidoklos. But Levasof, Savrilu Rabban, which I understand to mean that they reconsidered the halacha and they accepted the shita of the Rabban. I don't know what ki'ilu means. That has to be understood in the light of this Rabbi Chanan. It's not ki'ilu, it's mamish bi pogeh be'erva. And then he says, Karavani be'ena liyos havlad mamzer. Again, Karavani be'er. But he's not calling the child a mamzer. He writes here in the Masechet, he says, Zeshe mechavein lekonsol l'shem davaracha reu kibal eshes ach shelo litzorach mitzvus yibum v'karav hu l'chavlad yevamot ki'ilu nolad michayve krisis. Again, it's always karav or ki'ilu, kidin. He uses different words of the chaf adimyon over here. Now he writes in the footnote that there's a machlokas rishonim how to understand Abishol. Let's see if this will make any sense to us in the light of Rabbi Chanan that we said before. The Mishnah says later on in Daf Nun Gimel, Haba al Yevimto, Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, bein b'ones, bein b'rotzon kana. V'nechleku rishonim im din zehu afli Abba Shol. Haramban kosav shel Abba Shol lo kana b'mezid o b'ones. Right, so the Ramban is taking this literally, that she, the Yevamot, is an Erva. And unless you have l'shem mitzvah, then he cannot be Kona, because he can't be Kona an Erva, because Ein Kedushin talks to B'chayve Krisi. So in a case of Mezid or Ones, and I don't know about the case of Shogeg, exactly where that fits in, but right now, the Ramban is focused on Mezid or Ones. So Mezid means the Shem Snus. In that case, the Ramban says that he cannot be Kona, because the Torah says he's Kona because of Yevamot Yovel L'Shem Mitzvah. And he doesn't have a Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah, therefore he can't be Kona. And he can't be Kona because if he doesn't have Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah according to Abba Shaul, he violates the Easter Erev Aveish Ak. With that, which is going to undermine the Tfisas Kiddush. Achen b'Yushalmi. Now this is impressive. Mevuar shu Easter Yevamot L'Shuk. Whoa, what does that mean? Sha'amru sham she'Abba Shaul Rabbi Akiva Sobi Yishmamis Yevamot L'Shuk. When Al Gemara says Karav Hani B'Einai Leos Havlad Mamzer, it's going according to that shita, which is Rabbi Akiva's shita, that there's mamzerus in a case of Yevamot L'Shuk. So let's just think about this. Why is it Yevamot L'Shuk? In other words, the Torah says that the Yevamot is in an either-or situation. Either she'll have Yibum, or she's not allowed to marry anyone else. If the Yavam does not have Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah going to Abba Shaul, then he's like somebody else. And it comes under the lav of Yevamot L'Shuk. And why does Abba Shaul call the Vlad of Mamzer? It's because he holds like Rabbi Akiva that the Vlad of Chayvei Lavim in the case of Yevamot L'Shuk is a Mamzer. That's the Yerushalmi. Aval Muki Yosef Kosav. Shemidoraisa L'Kuli Alma Eino Kipogeh Be'erev. Even according to Abba Shaul, he's not violating an Easter Erev when he has Kavanah L'Shem Noi, etc., etc. Midrabanan L'Kuli Alma B'Di'eved Lo Nechshav Shpogeh Be'erev. It means even according to Abba Shaul, but the Raisa, he's not being Pogeh Be'erva. And therefore, if he went ahead and he had this Yibu, then that's not considered that he was Pogeh Be'erva. That's on a Doraisa level, but Midrabanan, I would say that he's considered a Pogeh Be'erva. In any event, again, this is very complicated, this Muki Yosef, but what we want to get out of this Muki Yosef is the following, that even Abba Shaul agrees that he's not called a Pogeh Be'erva. I think the Muki Yosef is emphasizing, highlighting the Chaf HaDimion, or Karav Ani B'Einai, but it's not real. It's a rabbinic comment on a Doraisa level. Even Abba Shaul is going to agree that he did not violate the Easter Erev. Therefore, the child is certainly not a mamzer according to strict biblical law. So it's not that the Ramban's reading of the pasuk Yevamot Yovel Lel Mitzvah, and he cannot be married to her unless he has the mitzvah, which requires Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah. Because if he doesn't have Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah, Abba Shaul holds that he violates the Isur Eishes Ach, which is an Isur Doraisa. So the Ramban is saying that this Yibum, without Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah, according to Abba Shaul, is Pogeh Be'erva Mamish, literally. He's having relations with an Erev on a Doraisa level, because he doesn't have the mitzvah if he's not miskaven l'shem mitzvah.
Yes, we Amish
Dorais, Amish Dorais.
we Amish will hold that, even by conference number.
I guess it would depend on whether he's 9 years old. You're talking less than 9 or more than 9. If he's more than 9, if he's 9, so you're asking what happens to the Erva if he can't have Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah? Oh, that's a brilliant question. Here, what he's asking, according to the show, and let's go with the Ramban's extreme cheat about the B'Oraisa, he's violating an Isser Erva if he doesn't obtain the mitzvah of Yibum because he's not Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah. So Ruvain's asked, what would be in the case of a Katan who's Bentes? He doesn't have a mitzvah. So he can't be Docha the Lotzas. Which case, according to Ramban, Shittin Abashol, he's not going to be invicted. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. Yeah, I thought that we learned it till now that, but maybe again, maybe that wasn't Abashol. Because it seems like the Maskota, we don't pass it like Abashol.
Up until now, we got the Katan advantage would
would certainly have Yibum, but where's the Kima Mitzvah to be Docha the Lav and the Erva of Eshesah? According to Abishol, and the Ramban is going very far with Abishol. How do you understand that? I don't know. Right, that's what I'm saying. That maybe any sugya where the premise of the sugya is that a katan can be Mekayim Yibum and Konis Yivimto is going according to Chachamim against Abishol. I don't know. I'm afraid to say that. I would need, I don't have the places to say. I need somebody to say that explicitly. I haven't found that, but you're right. Logically, that should be the conclusion. But again, you have the Ruki Yosef who says that even in a case of Baal Yevimto B'Mezid and Ba'ones, and he has no interest in the mitzvah of Yibum, on a Dorais level, Abishol will agree that he's not being Pogea Be'erva, and he's Kona Yevimto a Kinyan Dorais. That's the way he's saying. So Rabbi say this is where we'll stop for today. Let's just make a note. So we're up to the Chachamim Omer. Where's the Chachamim Omer?